All right, hello and welcome everyone once again to a Will Pop Vinyl collection and travel update video. I'm calling this the Japan Heatwave Tour because I found some amazing records on my journey across 20-ish record stores in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. And every single day it was like 95 degrees with wild humidity. We were living off of these mentholated cooling wipes they sell in a lot of the stores there, chugging Pocari Sweat, and probably doing 20-ish thousand steps a day, bopping between temples, neighborhoods, and of course, record stores. I was traveling with my wife, my 4-year-old, and my uncle who was on his first trip to Japan. So all of my record shopping got squeezed into a stolen hour here or there. I'm going to go through chronologically. That's the easiest way I can think to do it, city by city, and try to get through this as quickly as possible because there's so much. So we flew into Tokyo. And for the first, we flew into Tokyo. We were staying in Shinjuku, but my first real stops as far as record stores was in Shibuya the day after we arrived. Getting in the afternoon there, immediately went to Disc Union Shibuya, Jazz Rare Groove, one of the specialty shops in the Disc Union chain. Took an extremely tiny elevator up. All four of us actually crowded in, but the remainder of my family quickly left because of how tiny the store was as well. They were having a hard time moving around. I grabbed a bunch of stuff out of the bins. I'm looking for Japanese jazz. I'm looking for certain US jazz titles at this point. And this is where I ran into the problem that I talked about in my last video. Everything was sealed up into those sticky outer sleeves, making it really difficult for me to inspect the records and cross-referencing at Discogs to make sure like the price looks right, I'm getting what I want, etc. So I wrestled with this stack up by the register. Nothing was really what I wanted, and I ended up leaving with nothing from this stop and feeling a little bit like insecure or maybe unsure of how I'm going to continue to approach buying records because it's so different from how I typically do things in the US where I can just look at the record so easily and pull it up on Discogs and there it is, it's done. Immediately after that, I walked over to Union Records in the Shibuya Parco building. This was another strikeout. It's mostly J-pop, city pop, and like new reissues and stuff. It's probably more positioned for tourists who are eating in the department store there. It's actually positioned on the ground floor amongst a lot of the restaurants. So nothing for me, but that's okay. From here, my uncle tagged along for this next one. We went over to Face Records, who I know them, of course, for their Brooklyn outpost here, but this is their Shibuya location. And this is where I finally scored first records of my trip. And both of them are really awesome. So it was a really great start, and it helped me feel like, okay, I'm going to find some stuff in Japan. So first to show you here, we have Blue City by Isao Suzuki Quartet +1. This is on the Three Blind Mice label, a label that I researched a lot heading into Japan. From 1974. Suzuki is a bass and cello player, and he appears all over the TBM catalog. And this record itself features 2 of his original compositions, as well as some classics like Body and Soul. Unfortunately, no obi or insert here. The disc itself is pristine. It's like a strong near mint. The sleeve, I would say, is probably like VG based on the wear. You might be able to get away with VG plus because the corners aren't bashed in, but I'd probably call it VG. This is the only record I've listened to so far because I've only been back for 2 days, and it was awesome spinning it last night in the house. The other find was Awakening by Hiroshi Sato on the Alpha label from 1982. And this is not just an original, but it is a promo copy. A friend of mine who's a DJ and really into boogie music put me onto this record prior to my trip. City pop's not usually my thing, but this one I quite liked. I didn't have the intention to buy it or seek it out, but after striking out at those first 2 stores, I was like, I need to buy something like really big on my first day. So I went ahead and got this. Learning a little bit about Sato, he's one of the original city pop folks from the 80s over there in Japan. He was in the Yellow Magic Orchestra Orbit, And this is the record that I believe is notable because he starts leaning into English lyrics. and vocals, and it also features an Australian vocalist named Wendy Matthews. So yeah, I think it's, from what I've listened to it, in the car and stuff, it's really groovy. It has some really nice passages in there. It's really fun. I'm excited to play it in the house. And of course, this comes with the obi, and there's a really awesome insert that shows both the lyrics in English and Japanese. Just as a side note, on the way out, I saw the most expensive record. I saw All Trip. A really common theme in Japan was I didn't see a lot of expensive records, to be honest. Not like you tend to see here, at least in the New York City area. But they had one 7-inch Brazilian single, a psych single, in glass by the register. And I think I estimated it to be around $8,000 to $10,000. It's got to be some real oddball, like psych grail. Obviously not my cup of tea, but it was figured to be worth noting. Like, to find something like that over in Japan seemed pretty interesting. After that, we headed back to Shinjuku, and I had a short window before dinner to try to get in to some of the shops there. And I had to gamble on where I wanted to go. I ended up deciding to hit up a cluster of independent stores a little to the west of the train station there, starting with Hal's. It was a beautiful jazz shop, very focused on jazz, or almost entirely jazz, up a couple floors above like a 7-Eleven or a Lawson's. And they did have some Japanese jazz there, no Three Blind Mice. I was calling out some stuff to the owner. He was really nice and spoke great English. I'm looking for like Maxaro Chinomo or anything by Don Cherry. Didn't have it. I ended up not buying anything, but it's definitely a store I would go back to if I was in the Shinjuku area. As for the rest of the block, Red Ring, Record City, a place called Secondhand Records, those stores just didn't really carry much for me. A lot of it was like American rock focused, with cheaper budget bins or newer represses. Not much in the way of jazz, definitely no ambient. So glad that I visited them, so I know that I would probably not go to those stores, especially in a time constrained situation in the future. Moving on from Tokyo, the next day we woke up and went over to Osaka. I arrived too late to do any stores that day, but the day after, I was able to fit in a few stores in the Namba area after we did a day trip to Nara. Nara, by the way, as a side note, is a really, really fun day trip, whether you're staying in Kyoto or in Osaka. It's very easy to get over there. All right, sorry for that pause there. I had to go let my wife in. But anyways, getting back to Nara, amazing day trip. It's covered in these deer that are kind of friendly but kind of aggressive. Some amazing temples, and an incredible soba shop where we got lunch, and a surprisingly good sake experience if you're into tasting or buying sake. After we got back from Nara, I grabbed a 90-minute window before dinner to hit up 3 shops in the Namba area of Osaka. I went to Soundpack first. It was very sparse. Some of the bins were like half empty. Didn't really find anything for me there. I also went to Mint Record, which was like this long, narrow second floor shop. It was mostly fusion and a lot of American oldies and stuff. Also nothing for me there, unfortunately. But Rubik Records in that neighborhood did deliver a few things for me, starting with The Quest, Mal Waldron. This is a Prestige 1966 reissue, obviously, in Japan. A lot of Mal Waldron stuff is just like way too expensive for me in the US. So he was one of the ones I was targeting for Japanese copies. This one's got Eric Dolphy and Booker Ervin on it, so 2 different kind of styles of sax playing, I believe. And interestingly, it's a flip back sleeve. It's like a very flimsy, glossy material with this little flap on top. It's got a deep groove around the label that you're not going to be able to see because the label is black. But those are both signs that this is an older pressing that, of course, I didn't discover until I got these back home and actually got to properly like process them. I think I got this for around 3,000 yen. And so yeah, it was an easy gamble for me. And I haven't listened to the record, but I've been listening to it on streaming, and it's pretty awesome. Also from Rubik Records, Sonny Rollins on Impulse. This is a 1981 Japanese reissue with the obi and insert, and you can see cool MCA Records label there. It's cheap. I wanted more Rollins, so I grabbed it. I think the only thing I had prior to this trip was actually a Japanese pressing of Saxophone Colossus that I found in Brooklyn. The next day was a really big day. We went to Kyoto and did a lot of very touristy stuff with the plan to have dinner kind of in the downtown area. This traditional dinner that was really, really nice. But before dinner, of course, I had to squeeze in 2 record shops, and the best of which so far in this story was Joe's Garage. And by this point, I'd gone to maybe 6 or so stores. And also, as some background context, I had sold like over $1,000 worth of records before I came to Japan to try to fund this trip. And so I realized, I'm not going to find a grail in every store. I can't keep holding out for the perfect outcome. And I was kind of like really excited by finding that Waldron. So I decided to lean into what I'm calling vibes-based buying, where, and this is, I'm applying this primarily to US jazz, Japanese pressings of US jazz. If it looks cool, it's got the obi, the price is not too high, I'm going to grab it. And applying that methodology to Joe's Garage, I walked away with A Love Supreme, Coltrane, obviously. This is a 1976 pressing on ABC Impulse with the obi, with the insert. I have a original-ish copy of this that, of course, for me to afford it, is not the best quality when it comes to the grading of the disc. This is very, very nice, and this will probably become my house player copy for a while. Then I got Relaxin' with the Miles Davis Quintet. This is a Prestige mono reissue from 1973. It was under $20, I think, probably around 3,000 yen. Also, that's a very common price point I experienced. And this will be my entry point into earlier Miles Davis stuff. I'm obviously familiar with like his bigger records, but I've seen this on the wall around New York, and I've never pulled the trigger on it. And yeah, at that price, I'm gonna get it, give it a listen. Maybe that'll inspire me to listen to more early Miles. Got the Avant Garde by Coltrane and Don Cherry. This is an Atlantic reissue from 1972. And I think this one was about 5,000 yen, so that puts it around $30. This was my first, but not my last, Don Cherry find of the trip. I think I listened to this once a while ago when I was, learning about him, because I was like, oh, Don Cherry and Coltrane, maybe that sounds really cool. This might end up being a little too free jazz for me, like too free. And if that's the case, it'll go up on Discogs. Another one that I already had a copy of in the house, Maiden Voyage, Herbie Hancock. So this is a Blue Note reissue, 1977. I love that in Japan, the reissues had this original like Blue Note label. I have a really nice early pressing of this. I think it's actually like a first press stereo, not mono, that has one track that has a little bit of scuffing that creates noise. So obviously I got that one at a more affordable price at WFMU. So this will become the clean house copy to play. Another gamble here, My Dear Life by Sadao Watanabe on Flying Disc, 1977. This is an original press from what I can gather with obi and insert. I think this was like 1,800 yen, which is why I grabbed it. That puts it around like $10, $11. City Pop Fusion. I recognize this album cover from when I was doing my research. I don't know if I'm going to love it, but it just, it struck me as something familiar, and it was right next to this other record that I did grab, which is, if you are a City Pop person, you're going to know this record because it's so iconic. This is For You by Tatsuro Yamashita on the Air label from 1982. This is an original press. The original did not have an obi strip. The cover is iconic, as I said. This cover also is like extremely near mint given the age, and so is the disc. It has the insert and the inner picture sleeve with it as well. I think I got this for like just under $100. Fantastic, record that I'm honestly more excited about to play for my wife and daughter and for people when it's over. And also just because it's like such an iconic cover, I really wanted to grab this. After Joe's Garage, I hit up a store nearby called Super Milk that was tiny, really well curated. Unfortunately, I didn't find anything there, but it is the type of store I would definitely stop at again on a future trip. After Kyoto, we did another day in Osaka, this time exploring the Umeda neighborhood. So we did Osaka Castle in the morning, which was really cool. Again, lots of walking in the hot heat. Then we went up to Umeda for lunch, and there's quite a few shops there. So I did like the farthest one first, went all the way out to Straight Records, and then to Jazz Record Seeds, then Disc Union Osaka, and then Banana Records. Jazz Record Seeds was the only place I bought anything from. It's an all jazz shop. Maybe there was like a little bit of prog or something in the corner there, but an almost all jazz shop with a really, really kind old owner who was very interested to talk to me and help me look for stuff, which I appreciated. Unfortunately, he confirmed, the Three Blind Mice stuff sells out really fast. It's hard to hold on to it. He didn't have any in stock. But remember, at this point, I am vibes buying. So I ended up with Portrait in Jazz, Bill Evans Trio. This is a Riverside reissue from 1976 with the Obi. I'm huge on Bill Evans. I have a couple originals in my collection, US presses. I've seen this one around, but it's always been too expensive. So I'm happy to buy this. See, it's got the Riverside, just like in the US. So yeah, this was really affordable, obviously, and now I'm going to start being able to play it in the house, and maybe that'll help me build up my nerve to pull the trigger to buy a US original. Another Mal Waldron here. Mal 1, Mal Waldron Quintet, Prestige 1974. So remember, I'm like not opening these before I look at them, really, because of the nature of the packaging. And get this home to clean it up. It turns out it's a white label promo, mono pressing, and I think I got this for around $20. Maybe this was $30. Only 7 people have this on Discogs because it's a promo. So very, very cool find. Not expecting to see something like that. Not expecting to open that up when I got home. And lastly, Sonny Rollins, A Night at the Village Vanguard Volume 2, the Japanese mono pressing from 1983. And you got the blue note in there. And this is just building out my Rollins collection again. Excited to listen to this one. Just as a side note here, so, and to give you a sense again of like, I think I mentioned this in my previous video, the things that I learned. So Straight Records is another record store that is almost entirely jazz. It's like actually split. I shouldn't say almost entirely. It's exactly split between jazz and classical. They had no Japanese jazz there. So to kind of give you a sense of like having a store that's very much dedicated to jazz, having no not that they just like didn't have Three Blind Mice, but not even a single bin that was Japanese jazz. It was all like US jazz, spanning from very old stuff like 50s and even probably a little bit earlier into like 70s and 80s. So just kind of, to me, coming from the outside, going to a store in Japan that specializes in jazz like that, you would think you would see Japanese jazz there. So just an odd occurrence from the trip. So after Umeda, the plan was to go down to Amerikamura, another neighborhood that's very much like the old St. Mark's in New York City. If you've kind of remember it back maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. For me, even just remembering it 20 years ago, the rare neighborhood in Japan that is like covered in graffiti and people hanging out smoking and actually almost feels a little dangerous, even though you know it's not. It's also full of thrift stores. There's a lot of record stores down there and also high-end vintage resellers. So there was one building down there I had time to go to before dinner that has a lot of record stores in it. Like I think it has like 5 or 6 stores. I only went to 2. We're going to talk about one of them in this video and save the other for the next. So Rare Groove Records, up until that point in the trip, it was the best curated shop that I had seen. It had a big international section, Brazilian, reggae, African stuff. It also had a real ambient and new age section, a lot of electronic. It did have jazz, but it was a small store. So the ambient section, of course, got my attention right away. I'm thinking I'm going to find some of the stuff that's on my list, maybe some heavy hitters. I didn't find it there, but I found two things I did not expect to find in Japan. Two records by Deuter, the German new age ambient artist that I got turned on to by Dom seeking a thread on the Kukuk label here, or Kukuk, I'm not sure how to say it. So these are, I believe, 80s reissues of 70s pressings. So yeah, this one here, Halea Kala, and this one here, Celebration. After Dom's video talking a bit about this artist recently, I explored the ones that he referenced and also some others on Discogs. I really enjoyed what I was hearing. He's got quite a big catalog though. I don't think I had listened to either of these, but given the price again, I think they were about maybe $2,500 or $3,500 each. I figured to go for them. Now I have them and they're all cleaned up and ready to listen. So there was the second shop in the building, as I mentioned, called Morpho, and it is definitely the shop I spent the most on on this trip that we will lead into or kick off the next video with, because this is getting long. So yeah, we're going to end it here. That's the first half. The highlights, of course, were Face Records, picking up the Hiroshi Sato Awakening promo, finding my first but not my last Three Blind Mice original Blue City, leading into the vibe buying and picking up a ton of American jazz at great prices that I'm really excited to listen to, and those oddball Deuter German pressings, which I've never seen them in the US as far as I can recall, and just funny to find them at a shop in Japan. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this recap. Leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be some more Japan content coming up soon. Let me know if you enjoyed everything. Let me know what you'd like to hear more about. Happy to answer questions in the comments. And see you all in part 2. Later.